Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin, and this is episode 424. I am joined, as always, by my co-host. I'm not joined by my co-host, Stacy or Prez, but I am joined by a longtime friend of the pod. You know him from the Rundown. You might know him from his own podcast, and he is the co-founder of the Hot Hand Theory. His name is Geoffrey Rasmussen. That is at Frank Barrett119 on Twitter/X. Jeff, Frank, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I've got my handy Taylor Swift mug that I drink out of when I record these pods, and I'm just ready to talk some Knicks and some NBA. And this is my favorite thing to do. Like I love the Knicks, but
I didn't realize you were so woke with your Taylor Swift.
I gotta be honest. I feel like this is almost anti-woke at this point. Like with like it's. I just
Don't tell Travis Kelce.
Actually, this is something you'll relate to. They gave these out at the movie theater that I go to like a year late because I live in South Carolina and we're just behind the times everywhere. We're like a third world state almost. And so like a year after the Taylor Swift movie came out, they were giving these out as specialty cups when you went. And I was just like, I mean, I get a drink every time I go. And so I just kept this and now I just drink out of it all the time. So, love movies, love
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, love Taylor Swift. Hey, dude, she's talented. Can't underrate her.
Hey, I will never, I will never potentially anger the Swifties. That's not fighting that battle. All right. Before we get started talking about basketball, I do have to make a few announcements. First, being that Strickland has an Instagram. Check that out. That is at the Strickland Online Instagram. We are posting all kinds of new content on there. Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are not done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.strict.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store, and there's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it. We've got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes My Obvious Bozos, our newest podcast that is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, along with Zach Blatter, and you get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks and more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. And now you get access to Strickland NFL, which you guessed it, yes, is a podcast about the NFL that is hosted by Constantine Metricos. There are further tiers. There's $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. Those with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything football, from the preseason NFL to college kicking off. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads with games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, and get in on the game action. BetOnline. The game starts here. I am pumped that football is starting, and I have many weekends looking forward to not moving off my couch on both Saturday and Sunday. So looking forward to that. But we're not here to talk about football. We're here to talk about basketball, and we are going to do the over-unders for the Eastern Conference this year. We have this organized by division, so that is how we will do it. And we're going to start with the Atlantic Division. All of these numbers are via DraftKings. So here we go. All right, we'll start with Boston. Boston coming in hot, 58.5. That is over at minus 110. I personally would not touch this. I hate betting lines this big. If I were to touch it, I would probably fade Boston. I think they're going to be great. They'll probably win a lot of fucking games, and they could well win 60 plus again. But I don't like that Porzingis is out for at least a couple months to start the year. I also don't generally love teams that won championships, how they start the next season. I think they can often coast. And then the other part of this is like, I don't fucking know what's going on with Jason Tatum. Like, he's looked terrible the last 2 or 3 months that I've watched him in terms of like, look, and I've talked about this with Prez, where I think like he's such a weird player to evaluate because he does all of these so much. A lot of his value is just in like how he can literally play with anybody in the NBA. So he just makes adding talent so easy. But like, I'm sorry, like I don't know what the hell was going on with him in the playoffs because the guy could not make a jump shot. He didn't make a jump shot during the run up to the Olympics or in the Olympics. I literally think he shot like he went over on jumpers or something like that. And while that doesn't mean that I would assume that he's not going to suck at jump shooting forever. This is like a long-term thing where I think his playoff jump shooting numbers have gone down in the last 4 consecutive seasons. That's concerning because he's also gotten significant. I mean, he's a fucking monster now. He's gigantic. A lot of times when these guys add so much weight, it affects their jumper. I don't know that this is just like a blip on the radar. I wonder if this is maybe just a thing that he's going to have to deal with. And honestly, at some point, he might just become like a full-time weirdo, like 4 or 5 hybrid guy instead of a 3-4. So that part is weird. Again, I just when you win a championship, clearly they were very, very motivated last year. I think that was obvious from the first game of the season through the end of the finals when they won. But like they were on a mission. That team was very focused. You had a lot of people rowing in the same direction in terms of, Drew Holiday had a point to prove. Obviously, everybody that remained on the roster had a point to prove. Porzingis had a point to prove. So Joe Mazzulla had a point to prove, which was that he likes more movies than the fucking town. But like, and I don't think they're going to be, there's going to be a bunch of infighting or anything like that. I just don't know that you can expect the same level of focus right from the jump. And all it takes is a slow start for a month, 6 weeks, and hitting 58.5 becomes pretty daunting at that point. So if I were to bet this, I would take the under. But again, this is one I'm not going to be taking this line.
Yeah, the Tatum conversation is obviously the most interesting thing about Boston. But before I get into that, I have a little bit of trivia to throw your way. As you know, I've gotten into that recently. If you had to guess, since Durant left Golden State, how many teams in the entire NBA in any of these 5 seasons do you think have gone over 58.5?
I would probably guess off the top of my head that it's been 3.
It's a close guess. It's 2. It was Boston last year, and then it was Phoenix in 2022. Right. Yeah. The team that lost to Luka in round 2.
Great coached by the great Monty Williams.
Yes. It's actually funny that, I mean, this is totally a random topic, but the 2021 first round matchup, the 7 seed Lakers versus the 2 seed Suns, was like the battle of the teams that had perfect synergy around their stars and mailed it in so that they could get another star and sacrificed all their depth, and now they're just basically in hell. Both the Lakers and the Suns would still be so good, right? Like, I would be so confident that one of them would have won a championship if they had just held the course. But that's a conversation for a different day, or maybe never. It's in the past. But the point being is winning 60 games nowadays is hard. There aren't too many teams that are tanking. Like, I know the East has it a little bit easier because, maybe there aren't tanking teams, but there are some bad teams in the East. You look at these over-unders, the Nets are going to be bad. The Pistons aren't going to be good again. The Raptors, we'll talk about them in a bit, but they're probably not going to be super good. There's a really strong top of like 8 or 9 teams, and then there's a huge cliff afterwards. And so the Celtics will rack up wins against those teams probably, but they're going to have a lot of tough games. And I think all the points you made about the championship hangover, no Porzingis, these are really, really solid points. Their depth is a concern. I know the Celtics spit out role players like the Heat do. They get stuff from Hauser and Pritchard that those are fine players, but at the end of the day, without Porzingis, they've got 5 super reliable guys and a pretty short bench. So, one more injury happens, which is totally reasonable, and who knows what they're looking at. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but 58.5, that's a big number. Yeah, the Tatum thing, I don't even know what to do with that because it just depends who you're talking to. The Celtics fans are so unreasonable about him that it's like, I get why there are people who just overreact the other way, but Tatum's a really good player. I don't think he was the best player on their championship run. So, like, I don't think he's proven he can be the best player on a championship team. I think he's proven he can be an important piece on a championship team in a season when basically everybody got hurt and they weren't challenged the entire way through, which, look, that happens sometimes. It happens, I'm not saying their championship is tainted. I'm not putting an asterisk by it. I'm just saying there are still questions to be answered. And this idea that, Tatum proved the haters wrong last postseason, it's just not true. But on the other end of the spectrum, I think he's pretty clearly a top 10 player in the league. He's a really good player.
He's like, what happened with him is like 3 or 4 years ago is when we started getting, before each season, it's like, oh yeah, this is the year Tatum's gonna, like, he's making his MVP run, and then the season unfolds, and you're like, it's probably not a crime if, like, you're just not in the conversation with Nikola Jokic or Giannis or this version of SGA or whatever. Like, it's okay to not be that good, but, like, at the same time, I don't think he's like a top 5 player, but I think he's pretty firmly in that 6 to 10 range.
He can be. I think he can make a leap, though.
Maybe
I'm saying, like, a leap in terms of his position in the hierarchy. I think he's. I don't know how much better he can get from a skill perspective. I would never sell these guys short. They practice, so who knows how much better that he can get. But he just has to cut out the bottom 10% of the stupid shit he does. Like, that's really all he has to do.
But he can't do that because it's all in memory of Kobe.
Yeah.
He does all of that to be like, look, I know this is stupid, Joe Mazzulla, but you have to let me honor my role model, please. I have to take this shot right now. I have to pull up from 18 feet right here.
Some Celtics fan tweeted out Tatum's one more ring away from passing Durant in the all-time rankings. And I was so close to quote tweeting and responding, man, he really is trying to honor his hero. And everybody would have hated that. So I was like, I can't tweet that out.
It's just like, I don't know what's going on with him. He's a very odd player. He took this, I don't know if he got into that game against France, right? In the Olympics, the final. Mm-hmm. He comes in, he played some of the stupidest fucking basketball possible during the stretch, but he took this floater that was like, I could not, it was like an 18-foot floater. And I'm like, what? I've fucking never seen you take this shot ever in your life. And you're just pulling that out, like, after you've been riding the fucking bench. Like, yeah, you let me prove, I need to show Steve Kerr why he was wrong. And I'm like, I mean, that entire conversation, this is the problem with everything about Tatum and the Celtics. Every conversation about him is so stupid, where I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry, like, the point of the Olympics is just to, like, win, right? Like that's the point. If you're Steve Kerr, it's not to, like, protect the agenda of Jason Tatum lovers and, like, I don't know. Like, I have a lot of problems with Kerr, who I think is really, the last couple of years, not been great for him. But
I thought he coached a good Olympics. I thought he was fine.
I don't know. Even in the final, it was like, dude, maybe today you can just make sure one of LeBron or Steph are on the floor at all times. That might be a good idea.
The Bam Davis thing was really weird. That was the spot where Tatum should have played. Like, forcing two bigs as your backup 4 and 5 in, like, a pursuit. I mean, I got the positive trade-offs, but Tatum could have checked a lot of those boxes anyways, and he would have hugely increased the spacing.
The world is just way too good at basketball now to pretend that you can just bully ball your way like that.
Yeah. I do want to say before we move on to the different teams, the Tatum conversation on both ends has kind of highlighted this sort of influx of synergy into discussions, because, like, if you look at it from, like, the Knicks end, if you ask the average Knicks fan who's better between Tatum and Brunson, I think a lot of Knicks fans would say Brunson. And if you asked every Knicks fan who's better between Randall and Derek White, I think most of them would laugh and say Randall, and they'd be like, what are you talking about? How could it be Derek White? But then you but then you try to think, which duo would you prefer to have? Like, which duo is better? I don't think it's even, I think it's at least close, but I think I would favor the White Tatum combo in terms of, like, a synergistic duo and which duo leads to a higher ceiling as a duo. And it's just funny to me because the Celtics fans who would agree with the analysis I just gave completely missed the boat as to why guys like Derek White and Drew Holiday were so essential to that Olympic team and Tatum wasn't. It's like, it's these same reasons. It's it's White and Holiday willing to fit in and be additive and play supporting roles off of these guys. This is what Devin Booker did. Devin Booker scaled down. He was fantastic in the Olympics because of his willingness to scale down, and Tatum just did not show that willingness. So, like, yeah, he's in a great position on the Celtics. He doesn't have to scale down, but to not understand that as people who watch this player every day is just kind of strange to me.
Yeah, it's probably because Steve Kerr hates all Celtics, apparently. All right, moving on from the wonderful piece of shit Boston Celtics, we will move on to our favorite team around these parts, the New York Knickerbockers. 52.5. DraftKings has the VIG on this at -120 on the over. The under is +100, which tells me that they're getting more action on the over. I'm pretty sure this opened at 51.5. I know it was in other places, so I'm assuming DraftKings probably had it there too. So this got bet up, and they're juicing the VIG now on the over on the over here a little bit. So, or they're taxing you on the VIG really on the over. I would bet the over on this. This is probably the least confident I've been about a Knicks line since before Tibbs. Actually, no, even the year like that we fucking fired Fizdale and punted the first 20 games of the season. I had the over that year because it was like, I think the line was something stupid. It was like 27.5 or whatever the fuck it was. And I was like, this team was dog shit last year and they added actual NBA players. They covered that. But like, it's been a while. They're really good. I think even Knicks fans don't understand how fucking good this team can be at times because everybody's super, super concerned about the center situation, which I understand. And I know people have I know you have reservations about, is Tibbs going to do like the Randall at the 5 thing and whatever? Like we don't know. We don't have the answers to those questions right now. We're all operating based on what we've seen in the past and so on and so forth. Even if Tibbs never uses the Randall at the 5 thing, like, we can talk about, and you guys have talked about this on your pod about, can you maximize the potential of this team, the ultimate, upper echelon ceiling of this team, if without doing that? And I think that's a fair conversation to have, but that's really would not be my concern as far as taking the over or under on this. My concern is more like, I don't know what, like, Randall sounds like he's probably going to have to use the first month of the season to like get comfortable again on the floor, play himself into shape, blah, blah, blah. Mitchell Robinson, we don't know what condition he might be in when he comes back for training camp and then obviously the regular season. There will be some potential downgrade in the starting lineup as far as I'm concerned offensively, going from from Dante of last season when he was basically like the best volume 3-point shooter in the league outside of Steph Curry. And going from that to Mikal Bridges, there's potential upsides. We've talked about that previously as well in terms of Mikal, his ability or his better ability to create offense off of his own, that in a way that Dante necessarily does not. Brunson had an incredible season. My feeling is he can probably play at that same level this upcoming year because I feel like he's basically been playing kind of at that level more or less since midway through his first season with the Knicks. He's in the prime of his career. Like, I don't really see a reason to doubt that part. I mean, and this is the thing with this team, is like everybody's in their prime. Literally, everybody on this team is in their fucking prime. Randall, Brunson, Hart, Dante, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Precious, kind of. Deuce McBride, not quite there yet, but like getting into that mid-20s area. Like, and they're all good. Like, Precious is probably our worst player, but he's not like bad. Like, he's fine. He's completely fine. And I still am very intrigued by the way some of the things you can do defensively when you play him and Randall and OG together. But like, I think gun to my head, I'll take the over because, as you've talked about before, like, this is Tom Thibodeau we're talking about. So like every game is the most important game of his life. And when you have that kind of mindset, and I do think this team has kind of adopted that same mindset as well, that does a lot for you in the regular season because, you're gonna just effort your way into wins against a team like, you can not have it one night, but you're playing like the Hawks. And simply because you're trying hard, you can win that game. And effort combined with, oh, wow, the Knicks actually have a fuck ton of talent. Yeah, I would bet the over, but I'm not touching it this year.
Yeah, I have a number of concerns, but they're all related to the team maximizing this group of players. I don't think any of it really affects their chances of going over this number. I think they should go over this number. I think it'd be pretty concerning, save, major injuries again, if they didn't go over. I mean, whatever. If they won 52 games, I wouldn't be like, oh, sound the alarms. But
how could we do this?
Yeah. But I think this should be comfortably a 55-win team. I think they're too good for. They don't really have any weaknesses on the roster. They have, if you're looking for boxes to check, they check just about every single one. The concerns
and they still have a little bit of ammo to potentially make an in-season trade as well, which is important and I think is relevant for them as well.
Yeah, for sure. The concerns I would have are like, is DiVincenzo going to play enough? I have this theory that all the people who think DiVincenzo is going to play enough right now are in a couple months into the season going to do a 180 and say that he shouldn't play, like sort of like it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, because he can't, whether it's regression or it's just being in rhythm less due to a reduced role and reduced minutes. It would be so unlikely that he's going to replicate what he did last season. It was so remarkable. And so, yeah, I just think we did this last season. Last season, the Knicks were this team without a weakness. They went 9 deep. They had 2 really good all-star creators. They had best depth in the league, yada, yada. And then 2 months into the season, everybody was begging for a consolidation. I looked at a couple box scores from early in that season. Shwin, there was a game when the Knicks had a full rotation, like 10 games into the season. Grimes, the starting shooting guard, played 21 minutes. So right off the bat, it's like, we know that's not going to happen with Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is never going to get the Grimes treatment, right? Like, you would agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's going to play 28 plus minutes in almost every game. But Grimes played 21 minutes in this game. Quickly, this was a 14-point Knicks victory.
Who do they play? This is the Clippers?
The Clippers. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Quickly, he didn't close this game. It was annoying to me. I remember.
Quickly played 20 minutes, and he was a game high plus 22. So they lost his bench minutes. And DiVincenzo played 16 minutes. Like, Deuce is going to play the non-Brunson minutes. So those minutes are gone. And Mikal's going to play more than Grimes. I just don't see where all the minutes come from. I don't. There's going to be a problem. I'm just saying, like, unless DiVincenzo is the ultimate soldier, and maybe he is. Maybe he'll just love it. Maybe he wants to be with the Nova guys. But, he's the only guy who's playing for money, really. Brunson's paid. Mikal's going to get paid. Hart's Josh Hart. I'm sure he's more than happy with his situation.
Dante's playing for money, but he can't get his money until after next season. So, not this up. So I actually think this is the year where I actually will be like I think 2 things can be true. I think I can envision a scenario where I'm like, Dante needs to play more, Dante needs to play more, Dante needs to play more. But I can also envision him not, like, I think he'll buy in, because I think they know, and I think this team knows, this is one of those years where it's like, okay, no, we can like win a championship. And I think you'll get a level of focus from them and collectively that maybe has not always been there at times. Shout out like Josh Hart, who needed a full fucking quarter throughout the playoffs to like lock in. Very interesting, man. But like, yeah, like I think this is the one year where I'm like, if it's next season, so if we're talking about 2025, 26, and we're in the same boat where we're like, Dante's not playing enough, then I think it becomes a real issue, because he would be extension eligible after that season. And so he is literally playing for his money that season. This year is kind of like you're locked into your contract and you're not eligible to get extended after the season. So this might be just like I'm a homer and I'm being a Knicks fan, but I do feel like this is the year where I can envision him being like, I'll do what I have to do for the team. And that's like, that's obviously great. Again, these are like this being if this is our concern though, this definitely points to why, if you're going to bet this, you should take the over. If our fucking concern that we're talking about is like, Dante's not going to play enough, and there will be people who said that he would play enough who are going to be the maddest people about this. And
it is a problem that he's better than Josh Hart and he's going to play less than him. These margins in the league are so thin, and they're actively playing a worse player to satiate their head coach's biases. Like, that's a problem. And it's one thing if the Knicks didn't have size. They have 3 guys in Bridges, Randall, and OG Anunoby, 2 of whom can be on the court at all times. Like, DiVincenzo should play more than Josh Hart, and that won't happen. So I don't know if we're discussing like the team and the team giving itself the best chance of winning a championship. I think it's a pretty big deal to say, we're going to actively.
That's not one, like, that's obviously not the point of this exercise. 2, I'm not saying that it would be the best thing they could do in service of winning a championship. Mm-hmm. I'm only saying that I don't think Dante is going to be. I don't think that will be. I wouldn't be that concerned about that because his money is not.
Oh yeah, I'm concerned about it for the Knicks. I think we both agree that they should go over this number. I just was trying to add some intrigue to the conversation because I don't think people are here to just say, go over and Knicks goat. I do think there are some interesting storylines, and I mean,
a lot. Like, the thing is, a lot of this stuff there'll be injuries, so the minutes things will get skewed and it'll be all weird. But like,
I hate that. I said it to you last year. I don't know if you remember. You were like, you said the same thing last year. You were like, Quickly will play enough.
Well, people
get hurt, and I was like, dude, can you imagine Leon Rose sitting Quickly down and being like, "Don't worry, people will get hurt." Like, it's like, dude, fuck off, man. Like, Dante DiVincenzo just had one of the greatest shooting season a Knick has ever had, and we're saying to him like, "All right, sorry, dude, 18 minutes a night when the rotation is full, but don't worry, somebody will get hurt and you'll play 40 minutes that night." Like,
well, no, my point was more like, I don't think any of this really will be answered until the playoffs, because most of this shit, like, if Josh Hart plays more than Dante in the regular season, I don't really know how many more wins. Like, I don't know how many wins that is actually going to cost you. I don't think it's going to be the reason the Knicks wouldn't go over. But in the playoffs, like, the margins of all that stuff become obviously they're more heightened. And that's like when we will really see if Tibbs can learn one more new trick.
But do you not, I'm sorry to just keep harping on this, do you not agree that part of preparing for the playoffs is doing this stuff in the regular season? I feel like we've seen in 4 seasons, one of the big things that's been highlighted, in my opinion, has been sort of being unprepared to make these adjustments in the playoffs because they say in the regular season, "Oh, this won't matter in the regular season. Let's just do this one thing." Don't you think there's merit to trying different lineups and like seeing who
I personally think he's one. I don't know that he wouldn't have tried lineups with, say, Dante closing over Josh Hart if things hadn't, like, the sample of what we got to see of Tibbs with this kind of roster at his disposal was so tiny. It was literally that 1 month. And then, then Randall and OG go out at the same time. And now all of a sudden it's like, what the fuck? Like, everybody plays all the time. I don't know. I'm less convinced that Josh Hart will always play over Dante. If that is the case, then to me, that's like very concerning. I don't actually think that. I think it will be a scenario where Josh Hart can actually not close some games sometimes.
Well, yeah, but that'll be for Bridges.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I
think Dante's 7th in the pecking order.
I don't know that. I don't know that he's necessarily that cut and dry. I think, like, if you gave, Tibbs, rank the starter, like the starters are the starters, whatever. If you were like, okay, are you going to play Josh Hart more or Dante more? Yeah, I'm sure that in his brain right now, he's like, Josh Hart will play more. But I also think that he is a guy who has increasingly cared about 3-point volume as a team.
For sure.
And I think I get why the assumption would be he will not play Dante more than Josh Hart, or that he would never close games over Josh Hart, or that the only way Josh Hart is not closing the game is because Bridges will close the games. I get all that. But I think that there's a world where that's not true. I think he likes Dante. He definitely likes Dante. The fact that Dante kind of put in an Iron Man type of season has gone under the radar for whatever reason. But I don't think that's lost on Tibbs. And, look, when it comes to his biases, the one thing Dante has, as we joked about last year, was the man can jump, hop off 2 feet with his 42-inch vert and go get you a real nice highlight rebound, which will be near and dear to Tibbs's heart. So, yeah,
Shwin, I have a free money bet for us to sort of put a bow in this, because I think your analysis is good. I agree with you, and I know we're both trying to, me and you could talk about each team for an hour if we wanted to. But what do you think of Knicks over or under in this case? So better than 3.5 seed plus 115. Doesn't that seem like too good to be true?
Sorry, say it again. Under
the
3.5?
Knicks better than 3.5. So they need to be the first, second, or third seed in the playoffs. Right. Plus 115.
I would definitely feel pretty good about that bet.
Yeah,
I think they are going to have I know that I said I wouldn't touch this. If you told me right now the Knicks will have the type of health they had in 2022, 23. So basically, most of the team is healthy. We can assume that Mitch will miss some time and OG will miss some time just because they've done that in their careers. But if you're just telling me everybody else is kind of exactly what you think of them health-wise, there's not an unreasonable chance this team could have a fucking 60-win season. It's 100% there for them. Sure. So top 3 seed, yeah, I like their odds. I like their odds more than Philly or Milwaukee or Cleveland, who we'll talk about Cleveland when we get to Cleveland. Yeah, other than Boston, I'm pretty in on this Knicks team in the East. So I would take the over on that and feel
my crazy thing would be I actually would bet them versus Boston head to head with not the least amount, just in regular season wins. I think they're going to be the 1 seed. In spite of everything I just said, everything I just was talking about was more related to their ceiling and their championship equity. Again, I was trying to add intrigue to the conversation because I do think me and Shwin both feel very strongly that they should go over this number and they should be a really good regular season team. They have too many good players. They have 2 all-star level players, assuming Randall is able to come back. They have an abundance of additive role players that should fit really well, nicely in between Randall and Brunson. So, these concerns are related to the ceiling, but I don't think they should impact the Knicks' ability to be a very good regular season team.
Yeah,